All right, why don't we get started? So we've got so Harrison has 3 exams this week, and one of those exams is for this class. So, oh, that's syllabus. Without further ado, let's open up the review sheet because today is the last day we have time to review. I don't know if you were aware of this, but we talked about this last time, so I won't go through it again. But if you have any questions about formatting, let me know and I can answer your questions. If you have any questions about content, let me know and I can answer those questions. I've already met with some of you about specific items, and we can talk about anything else you're confused about. I've gotten some questions over email that I've responded to. So it looks like you guys are preparing, which is great news from my side. But yeah, today's the last day we can really talk about this together. So let's talk about it. What do you want to ask about? Do you have any questions? Oh, yes. Oh, yes, it is. Oh, and actually, I'm not going to tell you who said this because I don't want to embarrass him or her, but somebody wrote to me and said they read the whole book and they really enjoyed it. Imagine that, right? So I know it's a little bit too late for me to try to bribe you into reading this book, but hopefully it wasn't too bad, right? I've given you some kind of difficult readings throughout the semester, and in some ways this is difficult. I bet that first day you were like, oh no, I got to read all these names and it's really confusing. But once you get into it, you get to know the characters. It actually kind of, it unfolds in a nice way. So I was really pleased to see that student's reflections about how they actually enjoyed the book, and I wanted to share that with you guys. So, anyways, coming back to Lauren's question, yes, the whole book is fair game. That being said, how did I tell you to prepare for this exam is to use the review sheet, right? So this will tell you what do I want you to know in the book. There's a big ass list of characters here. These are all from the Ramayana. Oops, these are all from the Ramayana. So that's a good place to start, right? This can help you kind of figure out what is important in the Ramayana, and slides and recordings from class, right? So if you're still not sure what's important, all you have to do is look back at the slides. So today, what are we going to talk about? Well, this is what we talked about last time. This is what we'll continue at this time. There's some other questions we'll talk about, but I try to steer you into conversations that I think are important. And because I'm designing the exam, it's a safe bet that what is important in the slides will also be what's important on the exam, right? Now, that being said, I'm not making any promises. Not everything comes directly from the slides. Some questions are easier, some questions are harder, right? If every question were directly from the slides and they're all very easy, then it wouldn't be a very interesting exam. How do we find recordings from class? Emoji of some kind. Oh no, is that emoji? Like the video of our Zoom, or is it not a thing? Do we just use the slides from Moodle? Now, yeah, you're scaring me a little bit because what you're telling me is you have never been to our class Moodle page. And I'm going to assume that you have and have somehow missed the videos that I post religiously. Okay, so you have, but somehow you have missed the videos that I post religiously on the Moodle page. Where can you find them? They're right here, everybody. Have you not noticed this? These are the date, these are the time. This class is 12:05. You can see every video from class. Now, there's some exceptions. I think some of them got blocked because of copyright issues, which is sort of annoying. But here they are. Sometimes I forget to update them. So if you're ever looking for a video and you can't find it, just email me and I'll be like, oh yeah, my bad, I forgot to upload that video. But you can enjoy me and my voice talking to you over YouTube. See, look, I got a haircut. My hair was so out of control last time. Look at me. Nobody told me how out of control my hair was. But yeah, I got a haircut now, so I look more professional. Let's get those speakers going. So anyways, does that answer your question? Yeah, they're right here. Moodle, your friend.
Yeah, I could see them now. I somehow was not able to see those before, but now they're full in my face.
Okay, very good. That was why I did it. And of course, again, if there's any confusion for anybody, here are the slides. This is where you can get them. You might be wondering, should I download the slides before the exam? What would you guys say? Is that good advice? Yes, you should. Yes, right? I'm giving them to you. Like I said, the exam is based on the slides. If you download them, you'll be doing yourself a favor, right? Okay. But obviously it's up to you. You know, if you feel like you've memorized this whole book and you don't need any slides and you don't want the book and you don't want the slides for the exam, be my guest. Do whatever you want. Okay, other questions? Entire exam will be on Moodle. I haven't posted it yet. I basically composed the whole thing. It's on my hard drive. I've not posted it yet because I want to look at it one more time before I post it. But yeah, it'll all be on Moodle. You just go on the Moodle. I'll send the link to the chat at the beginning of class next time. It sometimes Moodle crashes, so I'm going to encourage you to copy and paste your answers from, you know, it could be something as simple as this Notepad program or Microsoft Word or whatever. I ask that you do not use Google though. I don't want you to be looking up answers because that would be cheating. And I've told you this before, but I'll tell you again, don't look up answers. They might be misleading. You might get the wrong answer. You might end up putting information from Wikipedia that has nothing to do with our class. And then I'll be like, where the hell did this come from? Oh, they must have looked it up in Wikipedia. And then I will no longer trust you. And losing your professor's trust is a mistake. Losing anybody's trust is a mistake, honestly. But yeah, so just don't do that, please. But yeah, good question. So yeah, it'll be on Moodle and you can take it through Moodle. Other questions?
I just want to say that I can take the test on Thursday with the class.
Okay.
Because
Yeah,
I told you that I have a game, but the game was canceled. So
the game was canceled.
yeah, because our team has to go in quarantine again.
Okay, well that is disturbing, but I guess that makes things easier for you in terms of the exam at least. But yeah, if you have specific scheduling things, or if you know, I hate to put it this way, but if you have COVID or something like that, because people do have COVID now, send me an email, right? If you can't take it during our class time for some reason, if you are sick or whatever, let me know. We'll come up with a new plan. But you got to let me know. This is another thing that happened with the last class. If somebody had some emergency problem during the exam, I graded it. I went over the answers in class today, and then they're like, "Oh, by the way, I was sick during the exam." Like, you gotta tell me, but like during the exam that you're feeling sick, or at least right afterward, right? Because if you wait for 5 days, there's nothing we can do about it. So as you can tell, my mind has kind of popped a few times over the last exam. So hopefully this one will go more smoothly. But anyways, yeah, if you have scheduling problems, please just email me. We'll sort it out. Oh. What's the format? So I told you before, 2 kinds of questions. There'll be quotation explanations. There'll be short essays. It'll basically say, here's a question. So for the quotations, let's say, here's a quotation. Here are 3 questions based on that quotation. And then there'll be an open space. I guess it's like a forum post, but it's a different format because it's timed, right? On the forum post, there's no time limit or anything like that. For this, you'll have an hour and 15 minutes. It'll be up to you to manage your time. And, you know, I'll remind you of this, but I'm telling you now, there are 10, I think I told you this last time too. There are 10 quotation explanations, 10 times. And then there are 2 short essays. And so, again, a challenge, because it's open book, open note, will be time management, right? You could spend the entire exam on one quotation and you will nail that quotation, but then you will have no time for the rest, right? So that is, by knowing the reading, by knowing the material and not just relying on your computer knowing it for you, you will go more quickly and you'll give yourself more time for the longer essay questions at the end. So does that answer your question about formatting? Okay.
I have a quick question. The short essays, are they more like analytical or like statement type of essays?
So just very quickly, Daniel said how many questions? It's right there. 10 quotation explanations, 2 short answer. So yeah, you can just reference what I just told Lauren. Ice's question, yes, analytical, right? So I said this last time, but I'll say it again. It's basically like the discussion sections in class, right? I give you an interpretive piece. Let's talk about women in the Ramayana, right? So I can say something, I'm not gonna, this is not one of the questions, but talk about women in the Ramayana. And the expectation is that there are some women in the Ramayana. You can identify who those characters are, and you can say something meaningful about them, right? So part of it will be just knowing the book and knowing the story. Part of it will be analysis of the book and analysis of the story, because again, this is what we've been doing in class, right? That's what we've been studying for and preparing for this whole time. So not a single question about these actual terms. You guys are either very confident or totally unprepared, and I don't know which one. Maybe it's a combination of the two. Are there specific terms you want to go over? These three we have not gone over yet. They're all monkeys. It is not in every class where you hear your professors say that. Ham. Are we talking about delicious pork? Yeah, Noah's son Ham, the curse of Ham, right? So Lauren remembered that. Can we go over the pillars of caste? Mario wants to know about the pillars of caste. Yeah, what book is this from? The pillars of caste.
Is it from the Rig Veda?
You could tie it to the Rig Veda, but I'm gonna say there's a conservative guess where there's a book called Caste. It's probably from the book that is called Caste. Wouldn't you see how that's a good guess? Let's say that's a solid answer. Yeah. So Mario asked a very general question. It's just, can we go over it? I'm gonna basically say no, we can't, because those are four really big topics that we covered in a lot of depth, and it took an entire class. So do you have a more specific question, Mario? If you don't, I encourage you to go back to Wilkerson and just read about them. Otherwise, we can endogamy. Okay. So you're asking what is endogamy? Is that the question? That's also up here. Okay, what is it? What is endogamy?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so Lauren gave a good explanation, but you couldn't necessarily hear it. Lucas, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was about to say that you can just marry in your own caste someone.
Yeah, so gummy talks about marriage. Polygamy is marrying many people. And endogamy is marrying within, right? Marrying within your caste, exactly. So what does endogamy have to do with caste? We talked about how this is actually like a fundamental concept within the caste system. If people don't marry within the caste, then there are no barriers between them. You start to look the same, you start to be part of the same culture. There's no difference between the people. But once you have endogamy, then all of a sudden these people are special and they can't have really any close, intimate interactions with those people, right? This was true in the United States during the Jim Crow era. This was true in ancient India when the different castes stayed away from each other. So hopefully that answers your question. We could go over a little bit on each of the ones, but again, it'll take a lot of time, and we do have more things we want to go over. Yeah, so people know Wilkerson and endogamy. Do you think it's best to look at the recordings in the past for topics? Well, it's up to you, Harrison. If you want, like, for example, if you have no idea what the pillars of caste are, look it up, see what day we talked about it, and go back to that class, right? And so, you get a recording of me talking about it. So if that's the kind of general overview you want, then you could do it that way. If you want more specific things, like, for example, just endogamy, you could look up the slides that talk about that. Again, I encourage you to download the slides, because then you can search through them. So yeah, it's basically just, it depends on where you're at right now and how much you know. If you don't remember anything about a certain topic, though, yeah, I would encourage you to go back and watch the slides about it. That makes sense for me. So yeah, just very simply put, the pillars of caste are these mechanisms by which castes are created within a society, and the mechanisms by which they are maintained. And just like we said, endogamy is an important one, but these other ones are also important. And you guys wrote about this too, remember that? I asked you for the second forum post, so you could go back to that assignment as well. So that's something we actually covered over several days in a lot of depth. Okay, any other questions? We got, it's been 20 minutes. I think maybe one more question, then we can move on. Anything? I mean, very simply put, yeah. It's just more analytical. I'm going to ask you to write a paragraph. just like in the forum post. So in that way, it's very similar. Different topics, though, right? So, yeah. Format is it's basically the same. And I'll ask you to cite things. You won't necessarily have to give like a page number because the forum post, you have time to like research and look things up and whatever. But I want you to cite evidence from the reading, right? That is how you prove your point, right? And that is how you prove to me that you understood what we covered in class. Okay, no other questions? Obviously, if anything comes up between now and the exam, I'm happy to talk. I had office hours today, and I had one student come meet me there. But yeah, if you want to set up an appointment, I can talk tomorrow, or maybe the next day. The next day is a little busy for me, but anyways, yeah, let me know. This is what we did last time. I just want to put a cap on it, like I usually do. We had some conversations about pleasure and danger, and you don't necessarily always think of pleasure as being dangerous, but it really is presented this way in the Ramayana, right? If we think about why was Surpanaka mutilated? Remember, she was mutilated. She had her ears and her nose cut off, right? Why was she mutilated? I mean, we could say because Lakshmana is mean, but it really is because she wanted Rama real bad, right? And Rama was even initially attracted to her. Remember that? Just remember? Don't remember? Blank stares? Yes? No? We can go back to it if you want, but I'm, again, we have things to cover. There's no way we're going to get through all these slides today, but we got to finish the book today because you have an exam on it. So why don't we keep going? Surpanaka wanted Rama. He rejected her because of the caste system. Remember, the different castes. She wanted him bad anyway. She went after him. Gets mutilated, right? Because she was going after Sita. Same thing happened with Ravana, right? And again, we see this moment where he's just totally losing his cool, right? He wants her so bad. He says, I'll make her the queen of my empire, spend the rest of my days obeying her command and pleasing her in a million ways. I'll do nothing else in life except enjoy her company. And so, I could have picked other quotes, but this one kind of represents it nicely. According to the three aims of life, what is going on here? Yeah, he's putting pleasure over his duty and success. I mean, he's coming out and saying it, right? My duty will become pleasing her. And his duty to please her is because she pleases him so much. And his life becomes dedicated to pleasure. Now, in some contexts, again, we compare this to like the Endless Love song. Remember that? They say stuff like this. Don't you remember? Right? A lot of love songs are like, I love you so much. You're the most important thing in my life, right? And we talked about this in class. Here, it's celebrated as if it's a good thing. Here, it's a dangerous thing. It's getting him in trouble, right? And spoiler alert, I guess you guys finished the book, so I already know this. This leads to his downfall. It is his desire, his pursuit of pleasure, his desire for Sita that leads to his death, right? He dies because of it. And Surpanaka, again, was maimed. And so we see Rama and Sita also. They want this golden deer, right? Remember the golden deer? And so it gets them in trouble too. Everybody pursuing their pleasure puts them in danger. It's a message that comes from this book. And I encourage you to think about the three aims of life in interpreting that. So questions about this? Is that pretty clear? Good. All right. So moving on. We started with this last time, but we ran out of time. It's basically a caste system, but for animals, right? If you had to pick one pillar of caste to explain this caste system of animals, which one would you pick? Actually, you could probably pick a few of them. How would you explain this caste system of animals using the pillars of caste? To go back to Mario's question, we can put them into action. Which ones apply to this caste system of animals? Aren't cows seen as divine? Yeah, cows, horses and cows are like gods. Holy cow. It's a holy cow. How do purity and pollution? Because I guess, in a way, animals must be endogamous, right? Because they can't make offspring with each other. So that's definitely true. Endogamy is operating here. What about purity and pollution? How does that come into play in this caste system of animals? Did we talk about that last time?
Yeah, we did.
We did. What did we say about it?
Well, we talked about like how dogs can't like really be like a part of that because dogs are like scavengers. They go out and eat raw stuff on the streets and stuff like that.
Yeah, so that's kind of a nice way of putting it. They eat raw stuff on the street. They eat nasty stuff, right? You know, I don't want to gross you out, but dogs eat anything they find, and you can use your imagination about what that might include. And so how does this help explain Rama's actions? Well, let's check it out. I guess, again, before we move on, this maps onto the human caste system because the human caste system is also arranged according to purity, remember? Brahmins are the mouth, kings and warriors are the arms, the regular people are the legs, the farmers and the merchants, and then the servants are the feet, right? There's a similar mapping of purity onto people, and so we can see a trend here, that just as humans are organized according to their purity, so are these animals. And so by seeing that connection, we can begin to read about caste in the Ramayana. And so we did not get to this part, if I'm not mistaken. So this is what I wanted to talk about today. I think in the interest of time, we can just think about it together. But how about we read this together? Maybe that's a good place to start. So it's on page 90. Page 90, that's chapter 6. It's called Vali, for those who are playing along at home. This is the first paragraph on that page, on page 90. So who would like to read this for us? Again, it's sweet participation points. And
I can read.
go
I
ahead.
can-
Harrison? Yeah, yeah, Giovanni just talked. So Harrison, why don't you go ahead?
Oh, okay. The perfect man takes a false step. Apparently commits a moral slip, and we ordinary mortals stand puzzled before the incident. It may be less an actual error of commission on his part than a lack of understanding on ours. Measured in eternity, such an even might stand out differently, but until we attain that bread, what is that? Breath?
Breath, yeah.
Oh, okay. Of view, we are likely to feel disturbed and question the action.
Excellent. Okay, so thank you, Harrison. And as we think about this now, again, we've got the perfect man. Who is the perfect man? Rama, of course. Actually, yeah, it says it in the next sentence. Rama was the ideal man. And it says he takes a false step. So something weird is happening here. Damn. I have this copy. You want this copy? Yeah. So we're talking about Rama, right? We've got the perfect man. What is the false step? What is this talking about? Again, this is all new. He commits a moral slip. We ordinary mortals stand puzzled before the incident. And it goes on. What is this false step that it's talking about? Obviously, it's the beginning of chapter 6. The things that happen in chapter 6 might have something to do with it. This image here, which is a relief image from Cambodia. I believe this is from Angkor Wat. I made this slide a little while ago, so I kind of don't remember. But it goes to show Cambodia is very far away from India, right? So this this story has legs, right? It was passed all over the world, became popular all over the world, and particularly in Southeast Asia. So we see these two figures here. Can you tell what they are? What are those? Are those humans?
The monkeys?
They're monkeys. And they're fighting. Can you tell that they're fighting?
Yeah, like punching each other.
Yeah, they're punching each other. And obviously, like, their hands are broken off because it's old and made out of stone. Who's this guy?
Looks like Rama.
It looks like Rama. It is Rama, in fact. And so if this is illustrating the false step of the perfect man, what is the false step? What's he doing here?
He is attacking people.
He's attacking monkeys. Yeah. So why is this a false step? What is the moral slip here? We've danced around this enough. Let's say it now. What? Go ahead. All right, I like what Lauren's thinking about. I don't totally agree with the details though. So Lauren's thinking maybe caste has something to do with it. And I think that's a wise approach to take. How do monkeys compare to Rama? Who's a higher caste, a monkey or a human? Well, I think according to our modern values, maybe we would say that, but I think we. Okay. So Lauren's saying the way he kills the animal is a problem. Is that what you're saying? And I would agree with that for sure. Daniel? Okay. He just like leave him alone, something like that. Yeah, we're getting closer to it. So Lauren's right. It has to do with the way he kills one of these animals. Who does he kill? Oh, we got some things. Hi, Professor. Okay. Maybe he looks down on them. Okay. A negative attitude. That makes sense to me. We are getting closer, but we're still not quite there yet. And so maybe I can show you. Actually, I don't have I have another image that I decided to delete. So this is the best image we're going to get. How did Rama, well, I guess first of all, who did he kill? We've got Sugriva fighting with Vali. They're both on the review sheet, so we should be able to tell them apart. Which one did he kill? He killed Vali. Thank you, Angel. He's shooting him in the back, which is dishonorable. Mario's got it. Very good. Okay, I was getting a little worried there for a while. You guys making my heart beat a little faster. Yeah, he shot Vali in the back, right? So what happened in this chapter? I think in the interest of time, I can just sort of tell you. These two monkeys are fighting over the throne. There's a whole backstory to it, which maybe we don't have to worry about. You guys should worry about it, but I'm not going to worry about it. We have these two monkeys fighting. Rama gets involved. Why does Rama get involved? What does he want out of this? What does Rama want from the monkeys? Why does he care about monkeys? Because a lot of people are saying he shouldn't get involved. They're lower than him. So why does he get involved? It's not necessarily clear just from this chapter, but again, we finished the book now. We have a little hindsight. What do the monkeys do for him? Also an important detail. Can Rama get Sita back without the monkeys? No, he cannot. What do the monkeys do for him? Gives him an army. Thank you, Max. He needs them to help find Sita. Yeah, thank you, Angel. Yeah, so they form the army for Rama. Is there something like a caste system in the army? Are there different ranks and statuses in the army? Yeah, absolutely, right? The army is based on that sort of stuff. And so who are the lowest caste members of the army?
Private.
Privates? That's a very specific.
Or recruits.
Yeah, recruits. So it's just the grunts, right? The ones who are the front lines. You know, we don't have to necessarily give them these specific classes, but I like what Harrison's thinking. These are the grunts in the army, right? Rama needs an army to fight against the army. So what does he do? He finds a bunch of low caste people. He says, join my army and help me go get my wife back, right? Without the monkeys, he can't do it. So how does he get the monkey army? Well, he finds two monkeys who are fighting each other. He kills one of them and befriends the other. Is this like a classic move when it comes to colonialism? Divide and conquer? Absolutely. The British Empire did it all over the world. United States has done it, right? Is to find a place where there's some sort of internal conflict, help out one side, then they owe you a favor, right? For example, in Singapore, That's how Singapore became Singapore, right? Singapore is a part of Malaysia. The British Empire came in. They basically said, hey, you're this guy who doesn't have any power. Why don't we overthrow the government and you can give us Singapore? He said, yeah, that sounds great. And so the British came in, helped them out, and now Singapore is an independent country. So something very similar is happening here. Rama helps one of the monkeys. Which one does he help?
Sugriva.
Yeah, Sugriva, exactly. He helps Sugriva. Sugriva gives him an army. He kills Vali, exactly. So how are the monkeys depicted in the Ramayana? One thing we've already started to talk about is that they're kind of lower caste. Are there things about the monkey that you would call sort of low caste? How do they compare to the humans?
Don't they? Well, aren't they like really like smart?
They're smart compared to most monkeys, yeah. So particularly Sugriva and Vali are very smart. They're sort of special monkeys, and in fact, they're kind of almost divine, right? So these aren't even just normal monkeys. They can talk, they can walk, they can think, they can act. But at the same time, how do they act? Right? Vali has incredible strength, exactly. So these are very special monkeys. But at the same time, maybe I can give you some slides for this. I'm going to jump around a lot today because I just want to cover everything. For at the same time, when it's time to get the army, Lakshmana has to go and crack some skulls. Remember, he's getting ready to kill the monkeys because they're being kind of jerks, right? How are the monkeys being jerks? After Rama helps them out, helps Sugriva out, puts him back on the throne, what does he do? Does he make good on his word and put an army together immediately? He does not. He wastes time. Rama's sitting out here during the monsoon season. He's having a big party. He's getting drunk. He's hanging out with his monkey girlfriends, right? He's forgetting about Rama. So again, if we jump back here, there is sort of a caste thing happening here, right? If you look at, for example, the low caste people of America and think about, for example, I guess it's more class, but the homeless people on the street, why don't we all give them money and help them out and make them not homeless anymore? There's an assumption, and again, I'm speaking from a bigoted point of view, there's an assumption that they don't deserve it, right? They're all drug addicts. They're just going to spend the money on drugs. That's why they're homeless. And so there's something very similar happening here. Why are the monkeys low caste? Because they're irresponsible. They can't control themselves. And they need someone like Rama to tell them what to do. So who's the best monkey? I told you there are 3 monkeys we'll talk about today. Who's the best monkey? Who's the most? Hanuman. Yeah. Who's the most pious? Who's the most virtuous? It is Hanuman. And what is special about him is he's always thinking about Rama. He loves Rama. Right? He's the devoted monkey who does whatever Rama tells him to do, whose mind is always fixed on Rama. What's going on in this scene? Pretty crazy scene, isn't it? We got a giant monkey. Everything's on fire. How did this happen? As you're thinking about it, I'll mention that Hanuman has become a god in his own right. And what's so special about him is really his faith. You know, he is faithful. He has faith in Rama. Just like we saw when Rama went to see Ahalya, he kind of solved all of her problems and set her free. Remember that? She was trapped in stone and he made her into a human again. There's a similar thing happening here with Hanuman. He didn't really know the extent of his powers, the extent of his abilities. And then by becoming faithful, by remembering Rama, by keeping him in mind, he learned that he can grow to this giant size. And so he ends up doing that a little further down in the story. Why is everything on fire? Again, important scene in the plot, right? I guess maybe because we're jumping around, you guys are getting confused. But what do I write here? Hanuman burns Lanka.
Wasn't he mad or something?
Maybe he's mad. What is Lanka? Is Lanka a real place? Have you guys heard of Lanka before? What about Sri Lanka?
that the place they live at, right?
Yeah, who are they? Ravana City, exactly. Have you heard of Sri Lanka before? Where is Sri Lanka?
Asia.
Asia. Can we get more specific?
Isn't it like by the Philippines? Like where Laos is?
Not quite that far east. It's more South Asia. It's just off the coast of India. You guys aware of this? Capital is Colombo. Used to be called Ceylon during the British Empire. Here it is. Sri Lanka. So there was talk of building a bridge and getting over into Sri Lanka. And Hanuman was able to make it over by becoming giant in size. And this is a real place. Lanka, it's right there. It's a real island. So that they were talking about it as this is the home of the demons, right? And so again, kind of interesting implications here. Once you have this idea of a demon, you can apply it to other people, right? And once you have this idea of a monkey, you can apply it to people as well, right? You can apply it to your soldiers. So anyways, what's happening here? He's burning down Lanka. He's burning down Ravana's city. Why is he on fire? Is because he went there as a spy, right? He went there to find Sita. Did he find her? Did you find her?
Well, I know that he was like looking around and like at like he like shrunk himself down like really like small and like looking around. I think he found her.
He did find her. Yeah, and he even gave her a ring and he said, "Hey, Rama's looking for you. We're on our way." And one thing he was kind of peeking for, he's like, is she giving in to Ravana? Is she like married to him now, or is she like captured? And at first he sees a woman who is clearly living very comfortably and having a good time. He's like, "Oh no, she has given in to Ravana and is now going out with him." But then he's like, "Oh, wait a minute, that's just some other woman. That's his wife." And then he eventually finds her. She's having a hard time. She's crying. They're abusing her. And so then he says, "Hey, we're going to come rescue you." And then he gets captured. His tail is lit on fire and he burns the entire city to the ground. So it's kind of the beginning of the end for the demons. Yeah, she was captured. People were, let's say, verbally abusing her. They were yelling at her and making her cry. I couldn't give you the page. Daniel has my book right now, but it's during this chapter. It's probably around 100, between 113 and 120. Within there, you can find it. So yeah, Sita's not having a good time. And so if we rewind all the way back here to these monkeys, what did the monkeys do for Rama? Is they gave him an army. They gave him the power to fight against the demons, right? They gave him the power to go get Sita, right? To protect Sita. So if we look at this moment, the perfect man takes a false step, apparently commits a moral slip. We mortals stand puzzled before the incident. Can we make sense of it now? Why did Rama kill Vali the way that he did? Again, it's not obvious. The book doesn't tell you this, so we have to analyze, right? We have to think critically. What would you guys say at this point?
Was it to gain respect from the monkeys or no?
From which monkey?
From Sugriva.
From Sugriva. Yeah, so to gain favor from Sugriva. But why did he have to shoot him in the back? Why couldn't he fight him face to face? It seems a little extreme, doesn't it? This honorable guy, Rama. And again, the book doesn't tell you this, right? We have to figure it out. What I'm trying to offer you is this idea that caste is at play here. Do people in a high caste have to respect those in a low caste? Again, you don't have to agree with this, but this is just a pillar of caste. It's how the caste system operates. Do high caste people have to respect low caste people?
No.
No, by definition, they don't. They can do whatever they want. And because he's just a monkey, Rama can do whatever he wants. He can kill him. Boom. Even if it's a very special monkey, he can still just knock him out like he's not even a real person, right? There's a total lack of respect for these monkeys. And again, the book struggles with it, right? He takes a false step. It basically says, like, you know, maybe we're interpreting it wrong. It's trying to kind of retrieve this and say, maybe we just can't understand it, right? Measured in eternity, such an event might stand out differently. But I don't buy it. You know, to me, this is just the caste system at play. But I'll leave it open to you, right? It is an open question. Why does he shoot him this way? Another way to think about it is Sugriva is the exiled victim, and Vali is the violent usurper. Although the story is not so simple. Do you guys know this word, usurp? That's actually a good word if you don't know it. Usurp is a verb. Usurper is a noun. Have you heard this before?
Never heard of it.
Okay, well, here we go. It's a person who takes a position of power or importance illegally or by force. So it's a very specific word, but it's applicable here. Is Vali the usurper? Well, so Rama's throne was taken from him, right? And Vali's throne was taken from, or sorry, Sugriva's throne was taken from him. So maybe he kind of has sympathy for Sugriva as well. In the end, it's a little hard to say, right? It's a little hard to say why he helps one monkey over the other. And we're kind of, just like the book says, we're kind of left confused. We're left puzzled before the incident. So that is one of my questions for you today, is why did he do this? And again, I think we've explored it from a few angles. One is caste. One is Rama needs an army. Another is maybe he sort of sympathizes with Sugriva. There are a few different things we could say about it. Do you guys have any questions about this incident? Do you feel like you understand it?
Wait, so he like killed him like the way he did because he tried to take things by force?
Because Vali tried to take things by force? Yeah, well, he threatens his brother Sugriva, right? Vali was very aggressive. Although, again, if you read the chapter very carefully, you'd see Vali was king first. And so it's this idea, is he a usurper, is he not? I put a question mark here. It's a little confusing. From one angle, he kind of is. From another angle, he's just taking back what belongs to him. So again, it's a very confusing little episode here. One thing we can think about too is, here's Vali dying, right? So that he's coming out from behind the tree, and he had just shot. I know we said he shot him in the back. Here he's shot in the chest. I guess it looks a little more obvious this way. He has his hands together. What does it look like he's doing here? Praying. Why is he praying? He's dying, right? But you know, it's sort of a funny thing to be doing, right? To be praying when you're dying. Who is he praying to? Who's he praying to? Are there any gods? What you say, Harrison?
Vishnu or no?
Vishnu or no? Yeah. Is it Vishnu? Who is Vishnu's avatar?
Rama.
Rama. He's praying to Rama. How weird is that? Why don't we read this? And we can try to make sense of it. This will help us understand the scene a little bit more too. Who wants to read?
I read.
Okay, please.
All right, Valley. While other gods come for boons after being asked, you confer them on the mere utterance of your name. Great sages have attempted after aeons.
Yeah, eon.
Eons of austerities to obtain a vision of God, but you have bestowed it on me unasked. I feel proud and happy at this moment.
And very good. Thank you, Giovanni. And so as you can see, he is dying as he's saying this, but is he pissed off? He was just shot in the back, right? He was just shot, like Rama was hiding behind this tree and shot him without announcing his presence, without facing him, without any ounce of respect. But how is Vali responding to Rama here?
He's praying to him.
Sorry, what did you say?
Is he praying to him? Right?
He's praying to him, right? Lauren said he's grateful. He feels like he's in the presence of a god. He quite literally says that, right? Other gods make you have to ask for a blessing like this. But Vali is saying, just by saying your name, you give blessings to people. I feel proud and happy at this moment, as he has an arrow, piercing his lungs, right? It's unbelievable. He feels honored to have been killed by Rama. Now, if we take this and apply it to the caste system, what is this saying? How does this reflect on the caste system? If we interpret this as scripture and use this to operate the relationship between higher caste people and lower caste people, what is this telling us? Exactly. If you couldn't hear Lauren, she's saying lower caste people have to respect higher caste people regardless of the situation. And so even if they are being physically abused, even if they're being murdered by higher caste people, the ideal response here that's being presented is, thank you, sir. May I have another? Thank you for blessing me with your attention at this very moment of my death, right, which you caused. It's absurd, right? It's totally absurd. And so when we look here, it's a vision of piety, respect, godliness. Aisha says it's really disturbing. It is really disturbing. Yeah. I mean, if you just read it as kind of a fairy tale, it's not so bad. But if this is, has implications for human society, and I'm arguing that it does, it is really disturbing. And in my mind, there's really not any other way to read this. The perfect man takes a false step. He kills this monkey in a dishonorable way, and the monkey is grateful for having been killed by him. There's more to this interaction, but this is the main takeaway in my mind. Questions about this, about the monkeys? Is that pretty clear about what role they play in the story? Okay, let's keep going. So just a summary. Monkey army assembles. Hanuman finds Sita. We've already talked about that. Ravana holds a meeting. There's the final battle. Sita has her trial by fire. We can talk more about any of these if you want to. Again, just in the interest of kind of keeping the ball rolling, we'll have to skip over some of it. A lot of it's really straightforward. There's a figure, Vibhashana, which is not on the review sheet. You don't have to know. He's kind of an interesting one, though. He was with the demons. He sort of switched sides. The final battle is very dramatic. They're like shooting arrows and playing tricks, and it goes on for many pages. Again, it's pretty straightforward, though, so there's probably not too much confusing about that. We've mostly gone over this monkey stuff. Do you guys have any questions about the final battle that you want to go over? Monkeys versus the demons? Yeah, these pictures kind of help, right? So these are, I think, about 100 years old, and there's a set of them in the Met, or at least there was last year. I don't know if it's still there. Have you guys been to the Met before? Have we talked about the Met? The Metropolitan Museum of Art, otherwise known as the Met. So if these were normal times, I would lead a group trip there, but these are not normal times, so we can't. So yeah, who's this blue guy with 10 heads?
Ravana.
Yeah, Ravana. So here's the demon Ravana. Here is a monkey with Rama standing on the monkey's shoulder so he can battle with the demon. Again, if we think about the caste system here, something very interesting is happening, right? The higher caste people stand on the shoulders of the lower caste people so they can defeat their powerful enemies. We have monkeys fighting with demons, right? So this is that battle scene, and lots of interesting stuff happens. The final scene, let's see, we have 20 minutes. That's actually a lot of time. Okay, why don't we read this too? This is how we can kind of do this final class today. So we can go through very specific sections together. So this is like the very end of the book now, page 146 to 147. Who wants to read this? So Giovanni just read, Harrison read. Would anybody like to participate? You don't want to read along, Daniel? You read from the slides? Okay. Who'd like to read? Don't be shy. This is how you get participation points, everybody.
I can read it.
Mario, that'd be great.
Yeah. Rama's arrows had burnt off the layers of dross, the anger, conceit, cruelty, lust, and egotism which had encrusted Ravana's real self, and now his personality came through in its pristine form of one who was devout and capable of tremendous attainments. His constant
I mean, I can read
meditation
again if you want.
on Rama, although as an adversary, now seemed to bear fruit as his face shone with serenity and peace.
Wonderful, thank you. So yeah, as Mario just read very nicely, we've got Ravana here, right? And Rama shot an arrow at him. And what happens when he gets hit by this arrow? Well, layers of dross. That's kind of an evocative word. Have you guys heard of dross before? What is dross? Something regardless as worthless, as rubbish, the dregs, the waste, right? And so it's often compared with something valuable, right? You got to like kind of peel the husk off, the wheat and the chaff. Have you ever heard of that before? So you got to peel off the worthless part to get to the part that has some sort of worth. So the anger, the conceit, the cruelty, the lust, the egotism, we've seen all of that, right? Remember, Ravana had this really lustful approach to Sita. He would get angry a lot. He's very conceited. We saw that in the meetings he had with his brothers. He was very conceited. He sort of pushed people away and pushed them around. All of this had encrusted Ravana's real self, which is kind of an interesting line here. What is his real self like? What is Ravana's real self? What is this talking about? Is it angry and conceited and cruel and lustful and egotistical and all that other stuff?
Isn't it like pious and like basically the opposite of what his kind of personality is? So he's like good deep down.
Yeah, it's saying deep down in this bad guy, there's actually some goodness. And something interesting happens. His constant meditation on Rama now seemed to bear fruit. Was he meditating on Rama? What is this talking about? What does it mean to meditate on somebody as an adversary? Sorry, that's a tongue twister. What is an adversary? It's just an opponent, right? Like a rival. So what does it mean to meditate on someone as a rival or like as an enemy? Yeah. What do people say? Live in your head rent free? Do you guys have anybody living in your head rent free? Have you heard that phrase before? Live in your head rent free. That's exactly what this is about, right? It's saying he's meditating on somebody, not because he loves him. He's pissed off at him. He hates him. It's his enemy. He's trying to figure out ways to defeat him. But what it's saying is because he was thinking about Rama, even as an enemy, right? And again, this speaks about Rama just as it speaks about Ravana. By thinking about Rama, even as an enemy, he's also receiving these blessings, right? There's something peaceful, pious, devout, capable of tremendous attainments. There's something very good about him at his core. And his true self starts to shine through at the very last moment of his life. So very different from the monkeys, right? When he's fighting the monkey, it's Rama is the high caste person and he's killing the monkey like the monkey doesn't matter. Now he's fighting the guy who kidnapped his wife, and we see a very different side to him. After he kills Ravana, I wanted to point this out. After he kills Ravana, he goes to inspect the body on page 147. It's the end of chapter 12. To those who are reading along in the ebook edition, chapter 12, it's the very end of it. They see a scar on his back, and he's worried. So Rama, I'll just read this on. He says, "Perhaps this is not an episode of glory for me, as I seem to have killed an enemy who was turning his back and retreating. Perhaps I was wrong in shooting the Brahmashastra into him," which was of course his weapon that he used at the end. So what is Rama saying here? What is he concerned about? Why would this not be an episode of glory for him? Again, you got to look at the page 147 to find the context here. this is a good thing to practice because this is what you'll need to do for the exam, is find these quotes, think about where they come from, think about what they're saying, think about what they mean. Why is Rama concerned here? Yeah. What makes you say that, Lauren? Yeah. Right. So Lauren's sitting on that page, but I have attacked the man who turns back. So if you look up at the top, at this moment they readjusted Ravana's blood-stained body. Rama noticed to his great shock a scar on Ravana's back, and he said with a smile, which is kind of weird to say with a smile, but he says, maybe this is not a moment of glory for me. And he looked concerned that he had shot him in the back, right? Which is a weird thing to be concerned about for someone who just shot someone else in the back, right? Shooting someone in the back is dishonorable, exactly. But don't worry, folks. It turns out it's an old scar. His brother comes in and explains it's an old scar and it's from some other exchange. And Rama accepts the explanation, and at the bottom of the page he says, honor him and cherish his memory so that his spirit may go to heaven where he has his place. Now I will leave you to attend his funeral arrangements befitting this grandeur. What is going on here? Who was that? You, Isa? Was someone about to say something?
It wasn't me, but I had a question that didn't have to do with what you were saying. Hindus believe in heaven and hell.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, heaven in particular. Well, let's just say yes. One difference is though they're impermanent, right? So there's reincarnation even if you go to heaven or hell. Now, let's complete the comparison here because Lauren got us started. Rama is concerned that he shot this guy in the back. He's relieved to find out that he didn't. His final instructions are to honor him. Again, this is the man who harmed him, who did him wrong. Why is he treating Ravana so well here? So, he's technically a demon, but he's a powerful demon. Was that a hand, Daniel? What caste is Ravana?
And in the highest tier, like of the caste,
What's that called?
like gods.
Brahmin. He's a Brahmin.
Brahmin, yeah.
He's a Brahmin. What caste is Rama? Is
Is he
Rama?
also a Brahmin?
Huh?
Is he Brahmin too, or is
He's
he
not a
demon?
Brahmin. He's a prince. What caste are the princes? He's lower than the Brahmins. Yeah, he's with the royalty and the warrior. Oops, something's wrong. Royalty and warrior caste, the Kshatriya, right? He's Kshatriya. He's a prince. He's lower than the Brahmins. Can we make sense of this now? Why is he being so polite to Ravana?
Because Ravana is in a higher caste than him. He's a Brahmin.
He's a Brahmin, exactly. And so even though he was angry and conceited and cruel and lustful and egotistical, his true self, which is tied to this idea that he's a Brahmin, is actually pure and good, is what this is saying. Again, it's a very confusing message, which is why I want to spend time on it with you and compare it with that message from the monkeys. Okay, does that make sense to people now? Do you have any questions about that? Well, that is exactly the question that we've been kind of playing with today. Okay. No, Brahmin. Yeah, I mean, relatively speaking, they're both still high caste, but Brahmins are the highest. Kshatriya, the warriors, the nobles, are the second highest. Rama is the second highest. Ravana is the highest. And so this answers your question, Lauren. Why? Yeah, it's easy to assume that Rama is a Brahmin, but we got to remember he's a king, right? He's born into the royal family. He is not a Brahmin, right? Ravana is the Brahmin. So again, we see something confusing here. It's sort of a conflict. The highest caste person is evil. He's also a demon. And yet we find that that evil is only on the outside. It's the dross. It's the extra outside stuff. At his core, he's actually very pure and good. And it would make sense because of purity in the caste system. He's the highest caste. He's the most pure one. Whereas the good guy is slightly lower caste. So there's sort of a this is probably why you're a little confused. There's a conflict of these two ideals, right? Does it make sense now? Other questions about this? It's a lot of details to hold, right? Figures, castes, gods, demons, all of this is kind of mapping on top of each other. But I think you guys got it. And we have 5 minutes to talk about Sita, who sets herself on fire. So we talked a little bit about sati, about women who set themselves on fire. And this is a classic example of it. Why is Sita, I'll write in the chat, why is Sita setting herself on fire?
I think that she wants to prove that she is like pure, still pure, and she really loves Rama and wants to prove it to him.
Yeah, and this is Rama here, if you could tell, he's a blue guy. Yeah, exactly. Aista says to prove her honor and her loyalty, right? And so this is exactly the case. And as Aista already knows, this is something people really did in real life. When their husbands die, they might throw themselves on the funeral pyre of their husband. This is a slightly different situation. Maybe we'll look here. This is what Sita says. My trials are not ended yet. I thought with your victory, our troubles were at an end. So be it. Light a fire at once on the first spot. Oh, Agni. Who's Agni? Fire God. Yeah, that's a good one to know. Great God of fire, be my witness. She's basically saying, I'm going to light myself on fire to prove how pure I am, how honorable I am, how loyal I am. What is the implication? Why would she be impure? What would have made her impure? Her time.
Wasn't she spending time with Ravana or the bad guy? I forgot his name.
Exactly. So I'll just read it to you because we only have 3 minutes left. Rama comes out. He says, my task is done. I've fulfilled my mission. All this effort has not been to obtain personal satisfaction for you or for me. Another word for that would be pleasure, right? The point of this is not pleasure for you or for me. It's to vindicate the honor of the Ikshvahu. So that's his race, the Ikshvahu race, like his clan, let's say, and to honor our ancestors' codes and values. After all this, I must tell you that it is not customary to admit back to normal married fold a woman who has resided all alone in a stranger's house. There can be no question of our living together again. So Aista, I would totally agree. Aista saying duty is first here, right? Rama's number one aim of life is duty. It was his duty to restore honor to himself and to his family. But because his wife had spent the night in a stranger's house, there is unthinkable that he would take her back. And so Sita is left with no choice. If she wants to be with her husband, she has to prove that she was pure. It's almost like a witch trial. Did you hear about the Salem witch trials, right? Where they have to prove that they are pure by, well, I guess actually it's a little twisted in those, because if you float, then you're a witch, and if you drown, you're a good Christian, something like that. This is the opposite. If she burns to death, it would imply that she's impure. But because she is pure, the gods honor her and restore her back to her life with Rama. So it ends with sort of a happy ending here. It's a very weird note to end on, but I think Aista nailed it by thinking about duty, success, and pleasure, and how Rama is constantly putting duty over any sort of other pursuit. There's a critique of this, though, and there should be. It's a feminist critique, and it's in a movie called Sita Sings the Blues. We obviously don't have time to watch it, but if you want to kind of review the story in an entertaining fashion, you can find this full-length film on YouTube. It's not only about the Ramayana, but it takes the figure of Sita, here she is here. This is her burning herself and it kind of asks questions about this final moment. We are now really out of time, but are there any last questions before we call it a day? I know we went kind of quickly through that last part of the book, but we actually did make it through. It's sort of amazing. Any last questions? How we doing? You guys feel ready for the exam? You still got a few days, so even if you're not ready, you got time to kind of look things up. Let me know if you have questions. I'll help point you to the right slides and point you to the right direction. Otherwise, have a good week.